So I've owned the iPhone 15 Pro Max since the very first day that it came out. With the iPhone 15 Pro Max being a year old and the 16 Pro Max being unveiled Monday, I'm not going to have much time to give this dedicated review when the 16 Pro Max comes to the studio. So we're going to talk about everything I learned here after a year, and I'm also going to discuss some areas I didn't talk about in some of my prior reviews. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Let's get the video kicked off with how much I paid for this phone. That was the final price. Pretty heavy taxes where I live. So you can see $11.99 and then $1321.90 out the door. So this is no cheap phone. This is actually as much as some foldables when those are discounted. So this device is pretty high priced, and I don't know what we're going to see at the 16 Pro Max. We might even see a price increase on that one. So we'll see what happens there. But has it been worth that price? And I think yes. And I talked about a couple of weeks ago my honest issues with this phone over the past year. So if you want to see the critiques, the problems I had with it, I made a dedicated video on that. I'll leave a link down below in the description. But definitely, I think it has been worth the price, and I'll tell you why in multiple areas here. The first area is the titanium. Now you might be wondering why I'm showing my 12 Pro Max, and I'm going to show you why. I loved the silver 12 Pro Max, but I also really disliked this. Look how gross this looks right here. Look at the scuffing. Look at the scratching. And I know stainless steel scratches, especially the silver color. Just look at it. It's absolutely atrocious. And that was with a case coming in and off of it. Still, yeah, not my favorite. When I first laid eyes on my 15 Pro Max back in September of 2023, I was immediately in love with you could see the brushed titanium, because I knew this material here was going to hold up over the longevity of ownership of this product. And look at it. A year later, look at this thing. Absolutely look at this thing. And by the way, keep in mind, yes, my 12 Pro Max is much older. You might be thinking, well, Nick, bro, your 12 Pro Max is way older, dude. Like, what are you talking about? Of course it's going to look worse. No, it actually has been looking like this since my 1 year usage period. It's been scratched up and scuffed up. Has it got a little worse? Yeah, but not much worse. It's been looking this way. I know you could say, oh, use some stainless steel polish. I've done that. I've done the stainless steel polish, and it didn't do much, but just shine it up a little bit. It's still got those little micro scratches. And I know this is not going to matter. It's just a phone. Why are you taking it so serious? Dude, I paid $1,300 for these phones here. Why? Of course I'm going to care about it. If you don't care about it, then why are you spending that much on it? Go buy a cheapy budget phone and throw it around. Honestly, I don't like that. When I'm paying this kind of money, I want the thing to be smooth. And the 13 Pro Max was similar to the 12, so was the 14 Pro Max, but now we have the 15 Pro Max, and it brought the brushed titanium. Very nice. I hope they carry this over into the 16 Pro Max, and I hope they keep it this way, because it's as clean as it's been since the aluminum days of the iPhone. I'm talking like the 6 and the 7 series. All right, so 1 year later, I think the display is just the perfect width. It's a 19.59. It also isn't super tall, so it's pretty usable one hand. So they got the right form factor here, although we are going to get a little bit bigger here with the iPhone 16 Pro Max, 6.9 inches. It's probably going to get slightly taller, but it's still going to be the similar width as this phone here. And we're going to see a reduction in bezels, even though these bezels are already been reduced over some prior iPhones. This display was a fantastic experience. All year long, it has been super smooth, very rich colors on board, and pretty sharp. Although I do think Apple can improve their resolution, make this a little more sharp. There are phones out there with higher pixels per inch, which just means that text is a little bit sharper. Not that anybody can make out any differences, but still, there's phones out there that just look a little bit more tack sharp than this phone. However, this device still has some of the best color reproduction. It's not oversaturated or undersaturated. It looks colorful enough, has good, deep, rich colors, and always feels smooth to scroll everything. So you're always just kind of like enjoying the experience of using this phone when it comes to the display. Whether you're scrolling, whether you're looking at content, it's always pretty good, except for when you do have it in the landscape mode, the dynamic island can get in the way a little bit for sure. So that can be an issue. But if you use this mostly as a phone, then some of the areas of that dynamic island do come into play and they feel fun to use. So I do think we're still going to see dynamic island for the 16 Pro Max. It's been around since the 14 Pro Max, and maybe we'll see it go away on the 17 or 18 models. But definitely dynamic island can be useful, although it does cut into content when you are pinching to zoom into the full screen. So 1 year later, another area I have loved about the iPhone 15 Pro Max has been the battery life. So the battery life on this phone has been the best I've seen since the iPhone 13 Pro Max. While it's still not your best battery life ever, like they can do, I'm sure they could do much better. This phone still, especially with some of the later updates in the iOS 17 land, definitely like 17.6, it's been getting even better. Honestly, if you charge this thing fully charged and you're just using, applications throughout the day, GPS here and there, a couple camera shots, some text messaging, you're going into the second day with ease with this phone. And it's just been doing fantastic lately. So I've been really enjoying the battery life for the iPhone 15 Pro Max. It's one of my favorite phones to use if I know I need a lot of juice for the day. Also, you can use the low power mode on here, but I don't even have it enabled right now because when you use the low power mode on this phone, it actually turns off the 120 hertz and makes the experience feel like a 15 Plus. Now, does this really matter during the day when you're busy and you're not paying attention to your phone? No. So you can throw it on when you're busy and not paying attention, but when you're sitting down and you want to enjoy some content, you want a nice scroll, when you're reading some news or you're watching some video, then I would definitely go ahead and turn that off. So definitely, sometimes I don't like using that. Most of the time, in fact, I don't like using it because I like personally using the best of the best because I paid for the best of the best here with the iPhone 15 Pro Max. All right, so one of the bigger upgrades that has made this phone worth it is the camera zooming. So 5x optical, and then you go 25x digital. Now the digital zoom is still okay. It's usable outdoors. It actually looks better than some of the other digital zooming phones out there, but it's still digital. So I still want to see like 10 times optical. I love that on the S23 Ultra. And I feel like some other phones can just reach much further, even on digital, 100x zoom, 120. So even though Apple caught up to some of the base level zooming here on Android competitors, they're still behind when it comes to max zoom. So there's always room for improvement on the telephoto reach for this phone. However, that was a big update. Also, the new 16 Pro Max is going to go to triple 48 megapixel camera. So every camera will have that high quality look, even if you're on the ultra wide over here. But it's never really been an issue for me. And I honestly feel like if you can't get a camera to do video, or you can't get if you don't want to do that and you just want to do it all on a phone, the 15 Pro Max is probably one of your best options, especially for video quality. The mics are good. The camera quality has been great, and it has that versatility of the zoom while also having really good social media sharing applications and great video editing apps. So if you couldn't get a Mac and you didn't want to buy a camera, or that just wasn't in your budget, you can just get one iPhone Max, Pro Max, and you could do all of that stuff and get started just with the phone. That's how powerful this thing is as a creative tool. So that's just something I had to mention. Also, it does have a really good front-facing camera that matches up super well with the rear. It's really such an amazing tool to get content going that there's just no excuse anymore. There's not a camera excuse, because most people do have a 15, a 15 Pro, a 14, 14 Pro, 13 Pro, 13, 12 even. These cameras have been great for a while, and this one's just better. That's just how I feel about it after a year. Okay, it seems so simple to tech fans. Okay, who cares? USB-C, not a big deal. It is a big deal to people who have been using a lot of tech products, especially me. So you can see Lightning port, USB-C. I have headphones that are USB-C. I use different brand of headphones. You can see here some of my OnePlus Buds. Over here, USB-C right there. I use a Galaxy Z Flip 6 over here, USB-C. I'm using now the iPhone. You can see the iPhone right here now has USB-C, and then on the old iPhones, Lightning. Yeah. AirPods are going to USB-C. We're going to see AirPods Max get upgraded to USB-C. MacBooks have USB-C now. iPads have USB-C. The camera I'm shooting this video on has USB-C. It has been a game changer for me over the past year because it's made this phone feel so universal, and it just blends in now with all my products. I can use it, across my ecosystems, whatever I'm doing in the tech world. and always just rely on having a USB-C cable. I've charged this thing with different brand cables, and I don't always recommend that for the longest battery longevity, but I didn't really care in a pinch. I would use a Samsung cable to charge this, an Apple cable to charge my Samsung. I would use a OnePlus charger to charge this. I mean, because it's all universal with USB-C. You can use Anker brand, you can use other brands, whatever cables you use, you could use those too. So USB-C has been one of my favorite things about the entire 15 series, and I'm glad they switched over. And that's going to be another good thing about the 16 series. As a couple more iterations of iPhone come out, pretty much everyone's going to be on USB-C. And the audio actually has been great as well.
It's been on the market for about 1 year now next month. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you as an owner of this phone.
You could see just blasting your ears off there. This thing is absolutely phenomenal with the audio. Even on the top volume, pretty good. Of course, you can always bump it up, make it a little louder if you'd like, but no real complaints there. One complaint I do have after a year of using this is I kind of got bored of this color. I always thought this color, even from the start, was not my favorite. I personally picked it up just because I figured the natural titanium would be the least likely to chip or show any kind of paint wearing off, and I was absolutely correct about that because it was like the blue titanium I have for the 15 Pro. That thing already has paint wearing off by the USB-C. So I was correct about that statement. That's why I picked this up. But there's just not a lot of pop to these phones. The 15 Pro Max, they have dull, boring colors, in my opinion. Nothing really is vibrant or zingy. Apple needs to do something for the colors if they want it to really stand out, because this year they were just they're just nice iPhones. They didn't really stand out too much in terms of that vivid or just vibrant color options. They're just not there for this generation, I feel like, on the Pro Max. Now, the ecosystem with the Apple Watch Ultra, with the Apple AirPods, Apple Watches, whatever Apple Watch you have, the MacBooks, it still has a strong hold in terms of having me really enjoy the iPhone experience because of all those products I use with it. But I've been dipping my toes into other ecosystems as well. I have like Samsung tablets, Samsung phone, buds. I got the whole ecosystem with them too. I've done the whole, I'm now starting to do the newer up and coming OnePlus ecosystem with the OnePlus Pad. You have the OnePlus Open, you have the phones, they have the OnePlus Buds. And basically what I'm trying to get up here is that the competitors are catching up, with their ecosystem advantage. So it is dwindling a little. I mean, Apple still controls hardware and software top to down. But there is some limitations to the iPhone. Like if you're using Google services, this is not like my favorite phone to use because the Apple apps just work better than the Google apps on here. And I don't know if Google does this by design, makes the apps not work as well. But some of the Google apps just don't work as fast or good on the iPhone to me as they do on either a Pixel, a Samsung phone, any Android-based product. So that's just something to note here, that you really got to be using the Apple-specific apps to make this experience as flawless as possible, or you will run into some slower than usual applications. Now, if you have a lot of patience and you don't care about waiting a little while, then that's not a big deal. But definitely, this ecosystem is really, really Apple-oriented. Like, if you're using outside services, those apps sometimes work better on other products. That's just what I've noticed. And the alternatives are catching up, I would say. They're still not quite, they don't have that tight control still across the line of ecosystem of products. Like, you'll get a Android phone and a Windows laptop and a Bluetooth audio headset that's not all the same exact, company making it or type of technology like Apple does. But at the same time, this is still, what I'm saying is it's still a pro for the Apple lineup, but it's definitely dwindling a little. So a year later, I still like the ecosystem a lot, but I don't know how much longer I can say that it's going to be the thing holding me here. But some of the apps like FaceTime, iMessage, those are still really strong, especially in the USA market. Those are really strong holds for the iPhone as well, because most people use those services to communicate here. So if you don't use those, you might get a little bit of issues when communicating, but RCS is going to fix that this year though. So that's not going to be a big topic either for long. So 1 year later, with the heat of this phone, it definitely was really toasty at first, and it never really was fully resolved. We did have some updates that didn't allow it to warm up too much, but I still found this sometimes would get hotter with the case on, and even with it off, it would get hotter than some of my older iPhones. even post Apple fixing it. So it never really got super hot after that. The initial days were just ridiculous how warm this phone was getting. But after that, it could still get warm sometimes, but just never that bad. So they definitely fixed it. But I think they had to fix it by throttling some of it. So the heat management is one of the most sought after new things for the new 16 Pro Max. And it's not something that you actually, it's not like a feature on the phone. It's just basically like you just want your phone to always run cool. And that just makes for a great experience day to day because you don't got to think about why is this phone so warm? That is just annoying. So I think a lot of people are looking forward to better heat management on the next one. And I got to say 1 year later, this one has been fixed, but it still can get a little warmer than some other iPhones that I've seen before. So I'm wrapping up here with my honest take. We talked the camera, we talked the battery. We didn't talk too much about the performance. I have a ton of speed tests and I went to town on how great the CPU is here. It is lacking a little bit in RAM. I'd like to see 12 gigs on future iPhones, but to wrap it up, at $1,300, this phone felt very mature and polished. It feels very high end with the titanium. It was a really nice step forward for making the phone just feel a little bit nicer for sure. The action button, I didn't really touch on that too much because it's just not something that really changed the game for my usage here. And the 15 Pro series is the only series getting, that's only the Pros, not even the base 15s, getting the Apple Intelligence. This phone is polished and all that, but it still can be a little bit lacking in multitasking. There's no split screen here, even on larger phones. And Apple's going to release a 6.9 inch phone, which even has more space for split screen, but we still don't have a proper split screen. And also iOS 18 is going to bring some massive upgrades to in terms of the customization factor, as well as many more changes, but the general flat UI hasn't really been redesigned fully. So the last time I think we've seen, what was it, since the skeuomorphic icons and then went to flat UI design, we haven't really seen anything drastic since then. And I'm not sure they're going to change that ever, but honestly, the phone has definitely felt more than worth the money for the premium body, great performance, long battery life, but I can't help but feel, and also good resale value. Let's get that straight. You can resell these for a ton, unlike most other phones. These are the top resale value phones on the market. Buying these is like buying a Toyota or something in the car game versus the phone game. But however, I can't help but feel that Apple is just resting too much on what has worked for them before and not taking enough risks. It just feels very safe every single year. I mean, look at the 12 Pro Max versus this, almost the same phone, just a few changes. So I do want to see them take some risks. I want to see something maybe ultra thin, like in the 17 Air that has been rumored, maybe a total redesign of the software, the cameras. Like, let's see something very radically different. Like, I'm waiting for that for iPhone. Until then, I think we're going to see a pretty bumped up size and battery and maybe just overall better performance, better cameras version of this on the 16 Pro Max. But we'll have to see what gets unveiled next week. And that's my 1 year later honest review with the iPhone 15 Pro Max. If you want to see again some of my critiques, go check out my honest issues with this video and on this phone, and I'll leave a link below. If you want to see some performance tests, I've done them, basically all of them. The S24 Ultra, we did that a few times as updates came in. We did the Pixel 9 Pro XL. We did plenty of phones, the OnePlus 12, and on it goes. So thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for iPhone 16 content that's coming soon, as well as many more reviews for the rest of this year. I'll catch you on the next one. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.